Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Kimberly Boschman and this is the Intentionally Intuitive Podcast. In this episode of Numerology Quick Takes, we're going to take a look at the forecast for the week of August 18th. This, of course, is a general forecast. If you would like your own personal numerology reading, where we'll take a look at your own personal numerology, please book some time with me. My information's in the description box below, and I'd love to work with you. All right, so this week, we're going to be working with the vibration of the 34-7. This is a really interesting combination because when we usually work through a cycle of 7, it can bring us inwards. It can bring us more towards sort of hermit mode, where it's more about self-reflection, observation, kind of coming inwards, right? Following our intuition, following that inner guidance, getting acquainted with that if we haven't been really working with it. And so that can be an opportunity or a cycle for greater self-discovery. Sort of everything that comes in, whether it's a test or a challenge or just an experience, is often pushing us inwards. It's the outside reflecting back to us where we have to discover something deeper about ourselves. And that's ultimately the goal of the 7 energy, to push us closer to our own personal truth and to discover more about our own personal experience, because that will, of course, have an effect on our external experience as well. So the 7 cycle pushes us inwards, but we also have the influencing energy of the 3, right? 34. And the 3 energy is outwards, right? It's about social events, socializing, connecting with others, collaboration, mingling, networking, all of the things, right? It's about communication, connecting with others in some way, in a deep and meaningful way. It can be also about finding our greater joy and coming back to our inner child and connecting more deeply with our inner child in order to become present and embrace what brings us joy, or discovering what brings us joy, because that can sometimes evolve as we evolve. And so there is an element to this cycle that is very much about the inward seeking, right? Going inwards to figure it out. But with this 3 influencing energy at play, it's interesting because it's incorporating both, right? The external and the internal. And potentially it can have us discover, first of all, like what it is that we want, what we need, how we feel about something, and then sort of incorporating those feelings, those discoveries, right, with the external world in some way, because it will eventually have an effect in how we connect with others, how we learn about the world, beyond our personal experience or beyond ourselves. So it's an interesting dynamic here. And because the 4 is here, there's something foundational. There's something we are meant to is the glue that holds everything together. So in this equation, the 4 sort of becomes the bridge between the external and the internal, right? But first we have to understand ourselves enough to know what makes us feel good, to know what we want, to know, what brings us joy, and what decisions and choices we have to make in order to continue to move in that direction of, creating that joy. And a lot of times, again, through our connections with others, through our exchanges and our interactions, we can actually learn a lot about ourselves, about the environment, and about others, and what others need, as well as what we need, and marrying the two, or finding that common ground to some degree. But the 4 is about finding solutions, right? So if you have felt like, maybe the group that you hang out with, or maybe the peers that you work with, or the colleagues that you work with, maybe it just doesn't feel good. Maybe it doesn't feel right. And it's interesting, I read something the other day, I think it was from like Forbes or something, so it was just a one-off thing, and I can't remember who the quote was by, but it was talking about how, career and quote unquote purpose, when it has to do with your career and, our creative output, that's always evolving. That can change. And so the goal is to surround ourselves with the people, 3 energy, who make us feel good in that environment, right? If we are in an environment where, we're being made small to feel small, or we are being yelled at or treated poorly or whatever, and it doesn't just have to be about career. It can be any situation where we're surrounding ourselves with people who don't see us and don't want to see us, who treat us poorly or like we're insignificant, or, can't show the bare minimum of basic acknowledgement, right? Not valuing what we bring to the table. If we're in that environment, that is going to have the greater impact to our, our mental health, our emotional health, our physical health as well. And so the goal becomes, finding ways to continue to surround ourselves with the people that feel good, where we can be ourselves, where we can show up in our greatest potential, right? And where that's celebrated. And, that's not always going to be the case. So the 34/7 coming through is like that opportunity to evaluate maybe the social circles that you find yourself in, whether it is career, whether it's friendships, whether it's, social events that you might go to, like meetups or something like that. How do the people in that group make you feel, right? And like, do you feel good after spending time with them? Do you feel like you have a voice? Do you feel like you can express yourself fully and authentically as yourself, right? That's that 3 energy. It's all about being unique and authentic and expressing that and not minimizing who you are. So in other words, if you're in a career, let's say a career or a job or something where every time you share an idea or every time you share a possible solution, it's ignored or it's demeaned in some way or ridiculed, right? That's not a healthy environment to be in. And I'm not saying like, if you're in that environment, quit your job tomorrow and be done with it. Obviously, unfortunately, we live in a society that's run by money. And so sometimes we have to do what we don't want to do until we can do what we want to do. And so it is a call, though, to evaluate, right? And to kind of observe and to recognize, like that 7 energy, to help us to recognize the situations we continue to show up to or put ourselves in that just don't feel good. And then it's up to us, because we have the responsibility and we have to take that accountability in order to make the changes necessary. And we always have choices. We can always start to move in the direction. And a lot of times it's about taking that first step. But if we keep showing up to a situation that doesn't make us feel good, or that we feel, where we're actively being, our voices are being silenced, or our ideas are minimized, or we just can't show up authentically, then it's probably not the best space for us. And the 7 truly pushes us through these cycles to find greater alchemy within ourselves, right? To find this, or put ourselves in the situations, or discover the situations, right, that can bring about that holistic balance and health. And so if we're in a situation that is constantly stressing us out, and I'm not saying like we don't play a part in that, right? I mean, there's obviously a lot to look at here. But if you're consistently showing up to situations that just don't feel good for you, then the question becomes, why do you continue to show up for those? Or what steps are you taking to start to make the necessary changes that will move you out of that environment? And will it be easy? Probably not, right? I mean, people often look for reasons to get offended or to be upset. And so, they might take it personal. But at the end of the day, the 7 says you have to do what is best for you, for your own personal holistic health. And that doesn't mean that you treat others poorly in the process, or you move to the extremes and point the finger and place the blame and all those things. Because at the end of the day, the 7's saying you have to take responsibility for your life. First, you have to figure out what you want, and then you have to figure out how to move in the direction that will get you there. And part of that is recognizing when something is not good for you, recognizing when an environment is not supportive, does not, where you're not in an environment where others want to see you succeed, right? All of these things. And so when we start to recognize when we're in a situation or a friendship or a partnership or a career or, again, some kind of social environment that doesn't make us feel good, we have to take that responsibility to make the necessary changes. And those changes might take time to implement and to come to fruition. But as long as we're actively moving in that direction, then that satisfies the cycle of the 7. But really, again, that 7 energy is pushing us to discover where it is that we're showing up in situations that aren't as healthy. It can also help us to see where we're showing up to situations that are very healthy, where we're able to shine, where there's not a lot of competition, where we feel very confident to be ourselves, to be able to express our needs and to have those needs met, where compromise is the name of the game, and where everybody is celebrated for their own unique contributions and our differences as well, not just our similarities. And the 4 here, this 4 energy again brings like the need to get serious, to get focused, to get dedicated to these changes that might need to occur, or to continue to build upon those environments where we do feel like most ourselves, right? Where we do feel supported, where we do feel seen and beyond acknowledged, right? And where if we share an idea, it's taken into consideration and it's explored. So it really is a beautiful energy here, and it can help us to understand the groups that we want to be associated with, meaning like, different strokes for different folks. I don't know. Basically what I'm trying to say is like one group might be a place where one person feels very seen and heard and celebrated. But then another group or someone else might not feel as seen or heard or celebrated in that particular group. Maybe it's like a knitting group or something, right? Who knows? Someone's going to feel really seen and heard there, where someone else is not going to feel seen and heard there. And so it's not the group for them. Doesn't have anything to do against, with the people there. It's just not the right fit for that particular person. So that particular person would need to find the group or the social environment or the environment that is most nourishing for them. And it's interesting because, in a recent therapy session that I had, it was interesting because my therapist had brought up about the importance of, and this, it's so simple. It seems like we should do this all the time, but the practice of asking yourself what it is that you want and what it is that you need, right? Instead of always focusing on what everyone else wants and needs and trying to accommodate that. Now, of course, we need to have consideration for others. Of course, I think consideration has gone out the window in recent years, but I think we need to kind of get more in the practice of really truly coming back to ourselves and discovering what it is that we want and what it is that we need, and giving ourselves permission to move in that direction without constantly feeling like we have to give an explanation or validate it in some way or have someone else give us permission. It's our responsibility, 7 energy, to give ourselves that permission and then to move in that direction without taking on the burden of feeling bad or shame or whatever because we couldn't make it work. So in other words, like if there's a job that you're in, but it's just not the right environment for you, This is a week where you can give yourself, I mean, you can always do this, but this week is going to be pushing you to make the decisions that will help you to move in a different direction, to find that environment that is most supportive for you. And give yourself permission to ask yourself what it is that you need and be open to the answers that come in for you. And it doesn't mean that it's going to happen overnight, but it will happen if you continue to take the steps in that direction. So again, this week can be about fixing the cracks that are present within your current foundation. That's the 4 energy. The 4 is saying, take a closer look at, again, where you continue to show up to situations or relationships or environments that are making those cracks worse. And also, where are you showing up in a very supportive environment? And how can you, build on that to some degree? So there's definitely this strong sense about, again, getting serious, getting focused, paying attention to how you feel after different engagements, how you feel in different environments. And take note, right? Again, you might not be able to make an immediate action or decision, but you can start to plan, you can start to form a strategy, right? And I would definitely say with this energy that you don't want to be overly impulsive, you don't want to be overly hasty, definitely take your time. It's easy when you start to recognize, like, again, when you give yourself permission to kind of really stand back and observe and see and honor how you feel about different environments and different situations. Once you recognize, like, oh, this is not good for me, this is not healthy, it can be easy to kind of, sort of go all in to the extreme and throw the baby out with the bathwater. And I would say don't do that with this energy. This is, the 4 is here for a reason, and that's to slow us down, to take our time, to get a strategy, to get a plan, to make sure that we're not creating more chaos than we can handle, right? To not make the situation worse. But just that acknowledgement, just that deeper understanding of, okay, this is not for me, or yes, this is for me, will help to guide you in, forward, to take the steps forward in whatever area this shows up for you. You might find that, in those environments where you're like, okay, this doesn't feel good, this doesn't feel right. And as you start to kind of move away from that in a different direction, you might get some pushback, you might get some opposition there. And, you'll have to find a way to overcome that, because you can continue to show up to that environment and continue to not feel good. Or you can, face the challenges of the opposition that you might face if people do tend to take it personal that you're separating yourself or moving in a different direction. We love to take things personal. So yeah, just be gentle with yourself as you move through that process. And this is also a look at, or an opportunity to look at those connections that, were maybe very, very fulfilling, very, served everyone at, as highest good a couple of years ago. But maybe now, as people have evolved and changed and grown, maybe it's just not the right environment for you or for others at this time. And these energies, the 34/7, helps us to find a way to honor that and also respect that if someone else needs to leave the situation or move in a different direction. It kind of allows us to release that idea of, ownership, or again, like taking things too personal when people are doing what's best for them. And we find ways to honor that, because that's what we want, people to do for us as well, is to honor and respect our needs as we express those needs and not take it personal, because it's rarely ever personal. And again, this is a very, very, very intuitive period. So follow your gut, follow your intuition, follow that North Star, trust it, learn to trust yourself. When you make decisions, trust yourself. Don't keep second guessing yourself, because that sort of erodes that confidence you may have built in yourself. So when you decide to make a decision or move in a certain direction, honor that, right? Trust yourself. This is definitely a time that can feel very rewarding, very fast. So it's almost like once you make a decision and start moving in that direction, you might start to see the results or the rewards of that pretty quickly. It's kind of a fast-paced energy here, even though we do have the four, which is typically a slower moving energy, and kind of forces us to look at the details and have a strategy and commit and see it through to completion, that sort of thing, and persevere over the challenges. That 3 energy really speeds it up. So it's actually a pretty good balance, but you'll likely see things start to move as soon as you gain the awareness and then start to make the decisions to move in that direction. You will likely see the universe conspire to assist, right? And to help to move you towards what's much more aligned. You can also find during this cycle or during this week that some of the things that you've been pursuing, some of the things that you've been moving towards, you might hit a point of completion at this time. And you can definitely see some rewards come in now. This is not an instant gratification kind of energy because that 4 is there, as well as the 7. The 7 is more like paced, right? So these would be rewards that you've been working towards. And because that 4 is there, the rewards will likely be in direct proportion to the effort that you've put forth. Now, if you're just initiating something this week, then you will likely see that it will take some time to come to fruition, right? And that's what I mean by if you're observing, if you're seeing that something is not for you and you start to move away from that, it might take time to see the results you're looking for, but I think you'll see some movement, right? You'll see the pace pick up a bit, but you might not see those results right away. So be patient. That 4 energy brings in the need for patience. This can also be a period that feels really active. It can feel really hopeful, where again, you start to see some movement towards your goals. And again, if you don't know what those goals are, then this cycle is the cycle for you, because the 7 energy can help us to determine what those goals are. And remember, our goals can change as we change, and they usually do. Also, the 3 brings in communication. So you could see communication of all kinds now. So you might see messages come in or people from your past reach out that can help to move you forward in some way. And there's usually some kind of, with this combination, there's some kind of like, it feels almost like divine intervention. Someone shows up who has the answer you're looking for, who can open the door for you or assist in some way that can help to push you forward, right? Especially if you've been feeling like you've been stuck. So answer those emails, answer those calls, right? This is a beautiful time to mingle, to get out there, to put yourself out there, right? How can people find you if you're not putting yourself out there? So if you've been looking to start the podcast, start the social media rounds, this is the time to do that, to get yourself out there in a way that feels good for you, not in a forced way or not in a way just because everybody else is doing it. That's how you need to do it. No, the 3 and the 4 and the 7 together are pushing you to be as authentic and true to yourself as possible, and to do it in a sustainable way, right? A lot of times when we see what's working for everybody else, we try to replicate that, and we could see some success from that, but it's not sustainable because it doesn't jive with us, right? It doesn't feel good, and so it's hard to sustain that long term. So these energies are saying, do the thing, but do it your way. And it might not take off right away. It might take some time. It might, you might need to have that patience. But if you stick with it and you stay true to yourself, even though you're doing it different, it will pay off and you will see the rewards from that. They might look different than what the rest of the world is seeing for themselves or whatever, right? The people that it might not look the same as like the situation you were trying to mimic, but it'll be very rewarding for you and it will be sustainable. So this energy really pushes us in that direction. So yeah, beautiful, beautiful vibration this week. This is definitely a week that can set the wheels in motion, that can kind of bring all the ingredients together to help us to see how to bake the best cake, right? It might take some time, but we'll bake the best cake that we've ever made with these ingredients. Of course, it's going to require us, right? The ingredients can be there, but if we don't do anything with them, we're not getting the cake. It's that kind of energy. The only thing I'll say about this also is be really mindful about being overly stubborn, about the need to be right? Quarrels or arguments or, just kind of like not compromising or just feeling like it's your way or is the only way can create some issues and unnecessary issues. So just be mindful of that. Even if you need to move in a different direction, you can do that in a healthy, loving, sustainable way. Doesn't need to be done harshly or, through an extreme. The other thing I will say about this is be careful about like jealousy or just rash behavior, because you want to make sure you're not reacting to situations, because there could be some buyer's remorse there. Take your time and respond appropriately and make the decisions and start to move in the direction that feels the most aligned for you in a way that feels good for you. And I think you'll get the most out of this week and this cycle. And we also have a new moon coming up at the end of the week. So a lot of big energy here for new beginnings, but let those new beginnings be the beginnings that feel most aligned for you and who you are in this moment, and not trying to fit into a mold that you've outgrown. So I hope it's a great week. Take care, everyone. Bye for now.